This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Whether you're selling a little or a lot, Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. From the launch your online shop stage, all the way to the we just hit 1 million orders stage. No matter what stage you're in, Shopify's there to help you grow. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/special offer, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/special offer.
Today on CityCast Boise, Idaho has made national news again, this time for a parental medical rights bill that has some horrible repercussions for sexual assault survivors. So our Hey Boise newsletter editor Blake Hunter is here to help me break down this story. We're also discussing how the Catholic Diocese is going toe-to-toe with Boise City Council, and we've got some tips on how to get the best view of this weekend's meteor shower. Content warning, this episode discusses topics that may be upsetting. It's Friday, August 9th. I'm Lindsay Van Allen, and this is what Boise's talking about. Well, once again, Idaho has made national news for horrifying reasons. Have you seen that?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. This bill, honestly, I don't want to say it flew under the radar. I think that it flew under my radar. We're talking about Senate Bill 1329, which is, we're just kind of call like the parental consent bill. It touches so many things that like, there's so many things to call it. I think you had the official name. What is it? Yeah,
it's the Parents' Rights in Medical Decision-Making Act.
Right.
That's the official name, but it's kind of being colloquially called the rape kit law or the parental consent law.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you have parental rights plus medical anything in Idaho, you know it's going to be a lightning rod. And this bill for sure has to, especially because it was brought back at least to kind of our attention this week because of a really well done article that came from Ruth Brown from Idaho Reports and their amazing blog, talking about one of the implications of this bill, which is that essentially minors cannot access sexual assault kits, exams without parental consent. And just take like 1 second to think about the implications of that. It essentially means that any teenager, anyone younger than teen years as well, the barriers to getting sexual assault care and to bringing up, and sorry, we're just like jumping into this on a Friday morning, but this is like really dark stuff that I feel like we really need to talk about, and we want it to be on people's radars, right?
Yeah, well, it's serious and it's real. This is really happening.
It's happening right now. And so essentially it's that, you know, anyone who was possibly assaulted by a family member now has another added barrier to, you know, being able to get a sexual assault kit and exam. So it's really, really dark stuff. A couple quick stats on that, because I think that maybe the really quick, I mean, we saw one legislator do this when this bill was actually going through earlier this year. But an important thing to note is that according to RAINN, which is the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, 1/3 of all minors who are sexually assaulted are related to their abuser. And almost 60% of them know their abuser. So that leaves only 7% of sexual assault victims who are minors who don't know, who are, you know, assaulted by a stranger, which I don't know, if we talk about the whole like youth pastor versus drag queens being guilty of sexual assault kind of thing that we've been talking about for the last 2 years, this just really goes to show that like the call is often coming from within inside the house when it comes to sexual assault. It always comes back to power and control. That's the one thing you always need to know about anything like this, any form of abuse like this. It always comes back to power and control, and this is giving perpetrators and sexual assailants one more means to more power and control against children, the people that we should be, you know, protecting the most.
Well, and it's so ironic, not funny ironic, just Idaho
really,
ironic.
Really dry irony. Yeah.
The Idaho
ironic, because that is separate. Yeah.
That's what I'm going to start calling it. It's Idaho ironic. Is that the proponents of this bill, their whole thing was, we're got to protect kids. As always, it's about protecting the kids. And just to this, because this is how my brain works. When we're talking about children who are being sexually assaulted by people they know, it's 1 in 3. So one in 3 of those cases, it's somebody that they are related to. And that's a huge stat. And when this bill was being debated and talked about, several people talked about how often that happens. And several of the proponents of this bill and supporters of this bill said that doesn't happen very often.
Right.
And that was their way to dismiss this very real concern.
It's an anomaly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that's so rare. And as someone who has worked in healthcare and has worked in the ER, it is not as rare as you want it to be. It just isn't.
Yeah.
And I think we really have to talk about, there's been a lot of talk of what was the intent, what were they trying to do? If we look at the statement of purpose for this law, they explicitly say that children who often lack maturity and make choices without considering either immediate or long-term consequences are protected by the information of their decision-making parents. End quote. So let's talk about that really quickly, because that is the entire purpose of this bill was anti-trans legislation.
Yeah.
That is a dog whistle for, and the proponents of this bill multiple times talked about and testified about how they were scared their children were going to be transitioned without their knowledge, that kids in Idaho were being transitioned without parental consent, which cannot happen. That's not how any of this works.
Kids are not having gender-affirming surgery at school.
No, exactly.
That's not happening.
And nobody is giving kids hormones or puberty blockers at school.
The school nurse isn't. Yeah.
Yeah. No, this is not happening without parents' knowledge. But that was the basis that they were saying, that you absolutely know, if you hear the phrase, the kids aren't considering the long-term consequences. In Idaho, that is a dog whistle for they're trying to stop kids who are LGBTQ from being LGBTQ. And so the entire point of this was to stop this, to create a situation where they didn't feel like that could happen. And then their, unintended consequences were this actually hurts kids in real ways. There are no children in Idaho who are being transitioned without an adult in their life knowing about it. But there are children who are being sexually assaulted by the people who are supposed to be taking care of them. And now they cannot access the care and the tools that they need to protect them. Which
was also already so difficult to access, right?
Oh, absolutely.
RAINN, again, to go back to a few RAINN statistics, they say that 9 out of 20 teenage girls are sexually assaulted at some point, and 1 in 20 teenage boys are. And definitely the teenage boy number, my guess, just around all, statistics that we have around men and boys being assaulted, we have a real lack of language and lack of understanding about how to talk about masculinity in that regard. And that's a really big failing that we have. So I'm going to just go out on a limb and with a lot of experts say that number is low, right? But this is a huge chunk of the population of our minors who are, having this happen. It's already incredibly difficult. But I think, too, that this keeps happening in Idaho where, especially legislators, we seem to have really normalized this narrative around, but it doesn't happen that often. Or, but this is a small chunk of the population, so don't worry about it. And that's really scary. That's really, really damaging. I think that it's kind of one, it's a little bit of a tyranny of the majority situation. But also I think that it's like, if our bar for when we intervene on a problem exists at, it has to be a majority of people are experiencing this, that's a really serious issue, and we need to stop normalizing that. Because I think that the ability for legislators, like paid elected officials, to go on the public record and say, this is only happening to a few people. Yeah, that's why we're talking about this. Like, this is happening in the dark. This is kept behind the scenes. That's why we need to intervene on it. And so it can happen to a ton of people and still feel incredibly isolating and incredibly alienating. And it does. I mean, I grew up in a rural area. I think about kids in rural spaces where there's even fewer resources than like people, who are growing up, like teenagers who are growing up in Boise right now, and even younger than teenagers. But we cannot normalize that. I think that we've accepted that in Idaho, and it's really, really dangerous. It's really bad.
Absolutely. Well, and there are so many other implications where there's a lot of focus on the rape kits, as there should be, because that's a major issue. And I do want to clarify, because I know somebody will be like, they can still get them. Yes, if CPS gets involved, if the police get involved, if the nurses signal like parents are not allowing this, eventually they can get a rape kit after crucial evidence is gone. It will take days and days and days. Mm-hmm. And the entire point is doing it as quickly as possible. So yes, they could eventually get it, but this is just another barrier, another hurdle. Now we're getting CPS involved. Now we're getting the police involved.
Exactly.
That is going to exacerbate the situation for these kids. From working in the ER, there were teens, like prior to this law, when you were 14 in Idaho, your parents couldn't access your medical records without your permission. And so you could sign a consent and give permission. Otherwise, you didn't have to give permission. So there were times that teens would come in wanting a pregnancy test, and they didn't want their parents to know that they wanted to get a pregnancy test. And so without their consent, we wouldn't tell their parents. And I know that scares so many people, that makes so many people upset. But so many of these teens needed care, needed access to care without judgment, without repercussions. Just they needed information to be able to make decisions, to be able to move forward. And now this law has created a situation where they're not going to have that.
When Governor Little signed this bill, he put a big kind of asterisk on it saying, I want the state, I want nonprofit, I want all eyes on this bill when it goes into effect. I want people to pay attention to the impacts of this bill, because he was saying, like, I'm really worried about mental health, about the mental health of youth in the state of Idaho, which we all should be.
Yeah.
We all, I mean, I'm recently out of like my teenage years too. Like it's Idaho's mental health in the youth category is pretty rough right now. So he said, I want people to pay attention to this bill, and we will make, I forget exactly the language that he used, but essentially, like, we want to make amendments. We want to follow up on this for any kind of unintended impacts of this. And that gives me a little bit of hope. But at the same time, the sexual assault kit exam thing was discussed in testimony, and it was still signed anyway. But, hopefully, I don't know, the Department of Health and Welfare, other folks are having their eye on this situation, and maybe even as soon as January of the 2025 legislative session, there can be some amendments around this, or at least I really hope to see that.
This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Whether you're selling a little or a lot, Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. From the launch your online shop stage, all the way to the we just hit 1 million orders stage. No matter what stage you're in, Shopify's there to help you grow. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/special offer, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/special offer.
Feel your max with Brooks Running and the all-new Ghost Max 2. They're the shoes you deserve, designed to streamline your stride and help protect your body. Treat yourself to feel-good landings on an ultra-high stack of super comfy nitrogen-infused cushion that takes the edge off every step, every day. The Brooks Ghost Max 2. Technically, they're a form of self-care. Brooks, let's run there. Head to brooksrunning.com to learn more.
So Blake, I saw in the Hey Boise newsletter that the Catholic diocese, or the local Catholic diocese, might be suing the city of Boise. Can you tell me more about that?
That is a little bit further down the road, but they did essentially say, like, hey, Boise, watch out, be careful what you do with this plan, because further down the road we might be interested in suing. So essentially, the Roman Catholic Diocese of Boise wants already bought this piece of land in 2021, and it's at 902 North 8th Street, which, people, close your eyes with me. As you're going down 8th Street northward towards like the north end, there's the Shell station, and then right across 4th Street is that little plot of area there. It's like right by the co-op, kitty corner from the church. So it's that little plot of land that basically the diocese wants to build a big old office building for the church. And it kind of, there's a lot of church buildings in the area, so like geographically with other buildings in the area, it kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
And they bought it in 2021. And so they essentially proposed this, I think it's 3 or 4 story building. And the Boise City Council kind of balked on it because actually before 2021, the previous owner of the land wanted to build condos there and wanted to build like 4 stories of condos with ground floor retail space, kind of a mixed use vibe. And then that was just one-upped even more after like the modern zoning code went into effect last year. So the city council actually rejected an original plan from the diocese earlier this year, and said, this doesn't fit what we want to do. It's a super private, Catholic office building. It's not super accessible to the public, and it's in a mixed use area where we really want it to be accessible to the public. And so essentially the diocese went back to the drawing board. Obviously they weren't happy. They went back to the drawing board, made some adjustments to the plan, brought it forward to city council, and while doing that said basically, hey, you better like this or we might be able to sue you for religious discrimination.
I've never bought a big chunk of mixed use space and then decided to build something there. I have not.
Okay.
As not an experience I've had yet.
Not yet. Yeah, we're getting there.
Yeah, maybe someday. But before they bought the land, there was already a development agreement and it was already zoned for mixed use, correct?
Yes.
So if you buy land that is zoned a certain way, there is a risk that you cannot get it rezoned. So a little bit, I'm like, that's kind of on you. Like,
Yeah.
You knew what the development agreement was prior to buying it. So that shouldn't be a shocker.
Yeah, I think that what they're now saying though is yes, to kind of make up for that, they added a new like public use space on the first floor, and also like reduced the height of the building in total. So I think that they're trying to walk the middle road there. I don't necessarily know what that first like public use space on the first floor is going to look like.
Yeah, it looks like they were going to have a Christian bookstore and or coffee shop and a childcare center for children age 0 to 2.
I think those things sound great. I don't know. I mean, obviously we need more childcare in town. So like any childcare is like good childcare because it, relieves pressure on other child. So even if this is maybe a slightly more exclusive childcare center, we don't know what the stipulations are maybe around members of the church getting priority, which that's purely conjecture. I don't know the background of this, like on that level. So obviously any relief that provides from other childcare centers is good. But at the same time, I personally wouldn't really want to be like, oh, I'm going to go hang out on the first floor of like the Roman Catholic Diocese building. Like that still doesn't seem super publicly accessible to me. And maybe that's just a me thing. I don't know. But I know that city council will surely have some thoughts about that and some perspectives about that. But, lowering the building height, they're trying to acquiesce to city council.
Yes.
But also came back with okay, we acquiesced already. We might sue you. So not super friendly.
It seems like the sticking point is the housing. That city council really wanted housing in that area. And housing is a huge deal in Boise right now. And so that seems to be the sticking point, that they don't want to create housing. And then they are citing law where a Sikh temple was denied a permit. And so they're saying it's a similar thing and that their right to worship is being violated. Now, I'm not Catholic. I've never been Catholic. I've never been to a Catholic service. So I'm saying this potentially from a point of ignorance. They're saying that their religious activities and their exercise of religion is being thwarted, I guess, by the city of Boise. I don't know that having an office building is essential to your exercise of religion. Not the same as like a Sikh temple where you're actually performing religious rites and rituals and worshiping. Does an office building fall under an office building and a daycare center and a Montessori school fall under the same exercise of religion? Or is it just because they own it that they want to use that as their excuse for a lawsuit?
Yeah, I don't know. And also it seems like, to the city's point about the housing, that plot of land is, again, prime place for housing, where the people who can live there, the hundreds of people that could live there, would be able to find jobs in downtown Boise or in the North End where they can walk and bike to work. They can have, a more urban lifestyle that, like, the city's wanting to foster that. They can essentially not have to drive places. They have easy access to State Street and public transportation, like so many of these things versus, I don't know, I feel like a church office building could kind of be anywhere, right? Like, I understand that you want it to be in this like prime real estate location, but I don't know, as just like a general agnostic atheist, like public citizen, I personally am like, yeah, we should have the housing there, not the office building that could go kind of anywhere.
Yeah. And I guess it doesn't exist now. So I guess maybe my metric is, do the Catholic people of Boise feel that right now, when that's not existing, that there is a substantial burden on their religious exercise or their religious assembly? Because it doesn't exist. So currently, do they feel like that is happening?
Yeah.
If not, then how is the city denying this permit, then suddenly creating that?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I don't know what people would say to that, because there's a difference between taking away a space versus not providing a space that was already zoned for that. So, I'm curious to see. I think City Council should be taking this up within the next week or two and reviewing this. So I'm really fascinated to see how convicted they are about this, and essentially whether they want to get into a legal battle with the Catholic Church. I think that City Council's in a good place right now. I feel like they, all of their new council members have their feet under them. Mayor McLean's got a second term going, so I don't know. The city never wants to get into a lawsuit, but they're pretty well poised to do it. So we'll see what happens.
So for my pick of the week, this weekend, I'm really excited. I actually saw this again on the Hey Boise newsletter, but the Perseid meteor shower is happening this weekend. Mm-hmm. I'm really excited. And so I planned, and we're going to a dark skies area, and we're going to go watch it. I'm very excited. My kids are excited. We're going to have a little, a bit of a getaway before school starts. And we specifically chose a dark skies area. And so I'm so excited. Peak viewing is going to be this weekend. Really, I mean, it's already happening, but peak viewing is going to be the night of the 11th through the early morning of the 13th. And they're just recommending looking at the north skies or northeastern skies. And it just seems like it's going to be really good. They're saying there could be up to 100 meteors per hour. So cool. So amazing. You don't need a telescope. I mean, if you have one, yay. But you don't need a telescope. Just look to the northern sky. And they recommended that when you start seeing kind of points where there's lots of meteors, keep looking in that area. And that will be where you're seeing all of them just kind of flying by. So I'm really excited to kind of get away from the city lights and see what we can see this weekend.
It's so cool. I love the Perseid meteor showers. I wanted to ask you, though, I realized that I forgot to ask you earlier this week. You were planning on going to the Bruneau Dunes State Park last weekend. Did you end up doing that?
Yeah. Oh, and it was
nice.
It was nice. It was, with the new moon, there was so much you could see. And I love they always have the presentation beforehand. Yeah. So, we kind of did it up real big. And then, it was just fun to see everything. I guess we're kind of like space people now, I guess. Like,
yeah, you're really filling it up. That's so funny. Yeah.
That's like amazing. A new thing for us. I mean, we dabble, but so it's just been really, it was lovely. I highly recommend the Bruno Dunes. It was fantastic. They do such a great job, and you could see so much. So I can only imagine, and it's a dark skies area now. So we had that in our monthly guide. I can only imagine how great it will be to see the meteor shower there this coming weekend. They're only open Friday and Saturday, so those will be the nights you'll have to check it out. Maybe not the peak, but it's still going to be amazing. They have that super powerful telescope. So yeah, I would recommend people heading over there for that.
Yeah, it's so cool. Hopefully the smoke is not too much of a deterrent for it, but I think that we'll still be able to see some at least. So that's awesome. My pick of the week is a little bit self-serving, but also kind of patting myself on the back for a project that I've been working on really all year. So if listeners might be familiar with the Backyard Artists, this is a local art nonprofit that was started up 2 summers ago now by a friend of mine, Ryan Marsh, who has been on the podcast a couple times and has just been doing incredible work for the last 2 years, provides a lot of micro grants to artists. And then we also put on events and whatnot. And I've been helping co-found a new literary press for local emerging writers. And so essentially any emerging writer, which you can fall within any age range within that. If you have a multiple book deal, maybe don't submit. But any emerging writer in the greater Treasure Valley area is welcome to submit fiction, nonfiction, poetry, kind of whatever you want. Explore your own writing through us. And we essentially just want to be here for writers who are trying to get into the publication space, because it's so difficult to get into publication. Hard. It's you apply for something and it's you need 3 prior publications to submit your work with this journal or whatever.
Yes. No, it seems like an industry where you either have to know somebody, or you have to have an in, or you already have to have been successful. So
totally. Yeah.
It's just, a really difficult industry to get into. Are you specifically looking for certain types of writing, or just really kind of anything at this point? And how do people reach out to you?
We have our submission page linked on our Instagram and our website. But yeah, we're looking for, like I said, fiction and nonfiction. Those are up to 1,500 words per entry, and then also poetry. So up to 5 poems, basically. And yeah, we really want you to explore. I'm working on some pieces for it. It'll be my first. If my own is good enough to pass my own judgment, it'll be my first publication of fiction, which I'm really anxious about, because I'm a writer. I publish nonfiction every single day through Hey Boise, right? But it's different. It's very different to publish something that you came up with, somewhat originally. So, I'm really excited about it. I think that I hope that it's a really good opportunity for local writers, and for finding it's also you don't have to really want to be a published author or writer someday to do it. If this is the extent of what you want to do, and you just want to be part of a local group, then this is totally for you. Our first publication is going to come out in November. So our submission deadline is coming up on August 18th. So not this weekend, but the next Saturday or the next Sunday after that is when we'll be closing submissions. And we have, we're going to be putting on readings with the writers who get in. We have a visual artist collaborating with us. But yeah, I'm really proud of this. I'm really excited about it. It's called Paper Plane Press. So I hope you check it out.
I think that sounds incredible. I am so excited that we're going to have something like that in Boise. That is great news.
Yeah, I'm really excited. Our whole mindset is we kind of have to build what we need. So I'm excited to be working on that.
Oh, that is fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me today, Blake.
Thank you. Have a good weekend, Lindsay.
That's all for today here on CityCast Boise. The show is produced by Evelyn Avitia, Frankie Barnhill, and me, Lindsay Van Allen. Blake Hunter writes our Hey Boise newsletter, and our music is by Up Is the Down Is The. If you enjoyed our show today, leave us a review. It helps other people find us. We'll be back on Monday with another great local story. See you then.